So I was lucky enough to ride a Yamaha Tenere on this trip, and this is one of the heavier bikes that was on the trip. It's a twin-cylinder 1200cc motorcycle, and I was not sure how it would do in the backcountry, but that's part of why I wanted to take it out here, is because we sell a lot of aftermarket parts for this bike. We deal with customers, and I wanted to be able to tell them whether it's appropriate or not, and sort of what it was like to ride the bike on the trip. And I have to say I was pleasantly surprised. The ABS is something that you cannot shut off on this bike, and I expected that to be a problem. I was really concerned about it. Not a single time in 750 off-road miles did I really feel like I needed to shut it off. The brakes were always there. It digs down through the gravel, it stops. In fact, I got very comfortable on it. I could ride it fairly fast. We were riding with some good riders on some really good bikes, KTM 990s and R1200 GS Adventure, and this bike was right in there. The shortcomings for the bike is it's heavy, as is the 1200 Adventure, and it's got a little bit lower clearance than some of the other bikes. So on most of the route, it was absolutely not a problem, but when you got into things where it was water bars at speeds and things where the 990 guys can kind of jump it, it isn't the type of bike that you really want to launch into the air. And on really rocky things, you could feel the rocks hitting it on the bottom. Fortunately, we have a really good Touratech skid plate on this one, and so it protected it. The bike was flawless. It ran perfectly the whole time. It has traction control, which is kind of interesting. In sand and in really steep, loose rocks, I preferred to turn the traction control off so that you could just give it everything it had to kind of scramble your way up. The rest of the time I left it in either the first setting or the second setting. The first setting is very limited wheel spin, so as soon as it starts spinning, it shuts off the power for a second. And on the second setting, it lets you spin the tire just a little bit. Those two settings I felt were really great for a BDR, because there's a lot of climbing in corners on gravel, and you're able to just give it as much throttle as you need, and it kind of meters out the power to keep that back end behind you. A couple of times I switched it off, and you can get the back end, you can lose the back end, just like you can on a 990 or any other bike that doesn't have traction control. So I kind of like the insurance policy of having that on there. You could really ride aggressively without having to worry about losing your back end, and so I was pleasantly surprised. And on the street, man, on the paved sections, on the twisties, we were able to ride some Butler Maps G1 rated stuff, so the best stuff that you can find, and the bike was a blast. It was so much fun. It's got a low center of gravity, very nimble. I mean, it's got a little bit of sport bike DNA, and it was really fun to ride. So I think for a lot of people, it's a really good bike. It's not the ultimate backcountry discovery route machine, but it's something that is very handy on the street, two-up, street touring. It can do everything, and on a BDR, heck yes, it's totally capable, and you can have a lot of fun on it like I did on this trip.